Peace YouTube, this is FleurBrun coming to you today for another intriguing topic of discussion. Yes, family, check on in. I'm going to go in on the homogenized beings. Let me take my sunglasses off. Sometimes you guys don't like when I wear my sunglasses, so let me take them off. I hope all is well. I'm kind of chilling out today. I have a little free time to have this discussion. It's actually a beautiful day. Peace, Kay. Hi, Saki. Hey, Bear Bounties. Peace. So, I got to get on the homogenized agenda. Some people would question my hypocrisy as I'm drinking decaf Starbucks. I'm not even drinking real coffee. You know, it's a decaf. You know, I've been off caffeine. I'm sober. I'm well, Jeannie. I'm well. Foreign. Hey, hey. Peace, peace, peace. So I wanted to go on in on the homogenized agenda. Pretty much created and disseminated by the genetically modified beings. So, you know, this conversation kind of stimulated by a photo. And I wished I could, oh, you know what? I should have put that photo as my clip. Maybe I'll change the little clip in the, you know, the little, what is it called? The little clip that I put before. I'll put it, I'll actually put it later because someone had posted, who is it? Kayla, big up to Kayla on Cypher. She had posted on her page a picture of a little girl. It looks like she's in the Middle East somewhere. It sounds like their accent sounds like they might be from Iraq. Could be from Afghanistan. I'm pretty familiar with some of the accents there. And the little girl was sitting on the lap of me, most likely her father, and she had white, pure blonde white hair. I would say more white hair. Hey, man. And her eyes were purely pink or red. Okay, they were pure red. Her skin was very, very pale. Her eyes were big pupils, big pink ones. What some would say red, and her eyes were very white. Her hair was really, really white or blonde, you know, depending on your perspective. And she was sitting on her daddy's lap. And Kayla, I think when she posted it, she was like, "What is this?" You know, she was, you know, kind of threw her off a little bit, like what that, because you see the little girl's eyes and you see her looking back and forth. And listen, she's a little girl. We never want to, talk negatively about a child, you know, but her state of her physicality was of concern. So anyway, I looked at the picture and I know what that already is. I worked in a laboratory, and as you know, I've talked about this many times. In a laboratory, they tend to utilize rats that have been homogenized, have been genetically engineered, who have been stripped of their melanin, meaning that the rats are now white rats with pink eyes, okay? And many of this, yes, tropical goddess has already got it. This is a form of albinism, okay? The little girl was a product of albinism, which does show up in genetics, okay? She's not hurt. She wasn't, you know, again, this video wasn't something, I think to the father, it didn't look like a bad video. He just was showing, I guess she's a bit of an anomaly because of the way she looked. And it was, for me, and I've seen a lot of beings, it was disconcerting to see this little girl, it just because you know it's not natural. And that's why we have to get into this conversation. And, you know, people say, well, where does albinism come? Albinism is almost like a genetic anomaly. Now, it shows up it can show up in all gene pools. Doesn't matter if you're a carbon being. It doesn't matter if you're, like I said, these are more brown people from Iraq. I liken the accent to more Iraq or maybe Afghanistan. You can show up with albinism in any culture, any, you know, social, racial component, you know, what you consider race. It can show up anywhere. Okay, it's an anomaly. It's a genetic anomaly that shows up. But as you know, living in the matrix, they have made anomalies and they perpetuate them. So what they do, like when you work with rats in a laboratory, they have stripped rats, homogenized them, genetically grafted rats to be stripped of their melanin in order to do genetic testing, to do experimentation on them, and that's purposefully done. Now, when people really get in arguments with me, You know, because I don't really have to argue anything. I always leave what's out as a fact. If something exists and it is what it is, I don't really have to argue that it's showing anything that's showing up as an anomaly in a great number is an anomaly that is purposefully selected and purposefully recreated in order to keep that anomaly for whatever purpose. Okay, so a lot of times where I get in probably the most issues with many people is my concept that they're homogenized beings here, genetically modified people that were created that uphold the matrix standard, system, that are perpetual perpetuators of whatever cues and genres or ideologies that the matrix wants to uphold. It has created a genetically homogenized genetically, yeah, they're lab rats, genetically homogenized beings on this planet that are purposefully created and replicated in order to hold up a status quo. And there, there's no argument about this because this exists. And I say to everyone, listen, how do you know that someone's homogenized or genetically modified? Okay. And from a scientific point of view, I would say this: if a being requires, listen to me, because this is where there becomes issues, and sometimes there's a bit of a feeling, and I understand the feeling if you are a homogenized being and you are hearing me call you out in something that you didn't necessarily know. I know it can be hard to accept, but it is what it is. Most of the people on this planet have been homogenized to a certain level. Some have been more than others. Okay, genetically grafted. Let me use another word, genetically grafted. So I always say to them, people ask, how do you know someone or beings are homogenized or genetically modified, GMOs? And I say to them, I say, listen, because they're unable to exist without assistance or without perpetually changing an aspect of themselves or cloaking or covering themselves in order to be non-exposed to nature. Okay, people who are genetically anti-nature, those are usually homogenized beings. Now, does it happen in nature that anomalies show up? Absolutely, it shows up, but it does not show up in high amounts unless there's been some sort of trauma to nature itself. So if there's been a change dramatically in a natural system or the air or the water, or there's been chemicals introduced to a society that has changed the genetic way that genetics show up, especially when a woman's pregnant and she's been exposed to a certain amount of chemicals, yes, you will get anomalies that show up based on the fact that there's been some sort of unnatural component introduced to women, and it will show up in their offspring, whether they are exposed to it when they're pregnant or post-pregnancy or pre-pregnancy. Remember, we have eggs. So this is why I tell our young ladies, try to be mindful of the things you do and the things that you eat and the things that you take in your body, especially drugs or alcohol, because you have your eggs, all the eggs you have for the rest of your life to give birth to children are inside of you. Now, our eggs are they're not fail-safe, but they're pretty coated and protected. But if you do something perpetually and regularly, as far as doing drugs or chiefing a lot, and I tell people who are chiefers, it's not healthy for the babies or your eggs, because chiefing is a form of chemicalizing and causing anomalies to show up, or your eggs, to lessen the quality of your eggs. And people don't want to hear that because they think chiefing is a better form of herbal, taking in herbs, but it does not. When you burn an herb, you change its chemical composition. So when you change its chemical composition, is no longer the herb that you were thinking that you were taking. That's just facts. Okay, big up to our chiefers. They get upset when I go into the chiefing. I just say be mindful. Chiefing too much and you haven't had children, or you want to have children, it does affect the quality and the status quo of your eggs. Okay, let's go back. So steaming is good for people who like to indulge in the herb. I put it in lotions for people who have arthritic problems. Using it as a oil. Steaming it, putting it in tea. That's a holier, that's a whole, I said holier, holy herb. That's a better way to actually enjoy it. And yeah, yoni steaming, actually, it can actually help with ridding of fibroids, and also some cysts are unable to coexist. That's a great, thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, when you put the herb in steam, when you're doing yoni steams, it's phenomenal of getting rid of, helping assist and getting rid of cysts, and also fibroids, form of fibroids. That's a great discussion. We should have a whole live on that one. Okay. Yeah, and make sure it's but remember, the herb matters. Genetically homogenized herbs are the reason that people are losing their minds too, because unless you can get an heirloom seed, which I won't say, but I'm trying. Big up to the Jamaican crew. If you are able to get access and it's legal, remember, I'm not promoting anything illegal on my page, but if you can get the heirloom seed, I'm going all kinds of sidebar. You know, I gotta focus. You know, when I go and start these videos, I have a focus. Yes, make sure you get heirloom seeds that are 50 years. I prefer 50 plus years. I prefer to get heirlooms that are 100 years old. You can get them. It's like being in the mafia, though. You can, and utilizing those seeds to be able to cultivate your own herbs and be able to utilize them for things like that. I tend to, if I have access to that, wherever it's legal, I believe in making it for arthritis. People who are elderly, it's really great for them. It's a great topical thing for dancers who have a lot of issues with joint pains and things like that. So that's what we use it for. My Jamaican, she was like an aunt to me. It was my boyfriend, my old boyfriend's aunt, she was like over 100 years old. I had a fever one time, and she had overproof rum, 150 overproof rum that was 20 years old, and they had used the seeds of the herb, you know, what chiefers use, and it had sat in there for over 20 years, and she used that to get rid of my fever. She put it on top of me, and she said, I will hallucinate that there'll be lunar males in the room, but she said, but the fever will be broken by morning. And my mom didn't really know what that meant. She was like, you know, lunar males, why would she see lunar males? But it did make me hallucinate, but my fever broke within 24 hours. So it does work. Okay, I don't know why that is. We can go into that concept all the time, but I'm going all off topic. We're talking about homogenized beings and if they're real. So if this one wants to know if they're homogenized, you would know simply by the fact that everything in nature bothers you. Everything in nature, you cannot coexist in nature just born and walking around without putting sunscreen on yourself. Okay, that's a sign that you're homogenized if you cannot sit underneath the sun. Now, living in certain regions, I will say that's a factor too, because if your ancestors are not from hotter regions and you're living like somewhere in South Africa, and obviously you're very fair, that wouldn't be a normal placement. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're homogenized in that way, because you're out of the geographical location of your ancestors, which is causing you to be anti to the nature and the location that you're existing in. Okay, so let's be rational. Okay, I'm not saying that. But for those who cannot sit underneath the nature itself without utilizing some sort of barrier, it's a sign that you may be homogenized. Okay, if you have issues with your body that require assistance, meaning breathing, your breathing is inhibited from a child, you always required some sort of medicine and so on, that could mean that you're homogenous. It doesn't always mean, remember, we have aerosols and there's a couple things that goes on into this. Now, remember, let's not compartmentalize everything, because it's a lot of different factors. I give you signs that you could be homogenized, which are one, but it could be linked to other things. Remember, we have chemtrails and contrails consistently, perpetually all over the planet. So that will affect how you breathe. Okay, that's going to cause issues for everyone, even if they're nature-based people that are not homogenized here, because it's not natural. Okay, that's a form of genetically modifying and terraforming the planet to make it cohesive for other entities that are not natural too. Let's keep that real. Okay, so having skin scenarios where you require things for your skin because your skin breaks out just from just being, from birth. You'll see things like that. What's another one? Oh, having assistant eyesight, eyesight that is not, that requires for assistance, meaning that you can't see properly, or if you're out in the sun, you have to cover your eyes with sunglasses. And it doesn't matter if your eyes are brown or clear. Homogenized beings are not always, when I say homogenized beings, you can be brown and be genetically modified, and you can be light and lunar and be genetically modified. This is an equal opportunist conversation. What else? Uh, Obviously, if you're unable to reproduce, or you don't want to reproduce, meaning that you've never had the necessity or the feeling, especially when we're talking about adults here, where you've never had the feeling or craving to have children, that's also a sign that you could be homogenized. Okay. All beings that are healthy want to replicate themselves. Listen to what I say. And this is non-judgment. This is an observation. All beings that are healthy want to replicate themselves. Okay, meaning that they're living lifestyles with fruitful, with thoughts and future ideologies of future fruitful sexuality that would allot for children to be established. Okay. Negative ruses can be, not necessarily, they can be homogenized, but not all. Remember, we talked about off-world blood with the negative ruses. Negative ruses are, some of them are off-planetary bloodlines, meaning that these are bloodlines that are galactic based. They have a lot of that galactic or interdimensional qualities to them. That means that they're not necessarily from here, so to speak. They're mixed with beings that were not originators or natural beings that were from the earth. That's where you get some of the negative ruses. But also we got to be careful, because when you clone beings or you homogenize beings, you always get a negative ruse. Okay, so it's not all negative ruses are the same. So that's why I say we can't compartmentalize, because you have negative ruses that are, they're natural for where they come from, but they're most of their gene pool is not necessarily from here. This is my opinion based on what I know. You should research this self. I always tell you to research everything I say, because I could be all kinds of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Never take anything I say at face value. You always want to research what I say and kind of put it against other things and see if it resonates with you. And then there are beings that are homogenized. All clone beings will turn out roost negative. All homogenized beings, to the greatest degree, will come out negative roost. Okay? Okay. Uh, what else? If you're genetically homogenized, you will have a natural structure. Everything on the earth is balanced in structure. Everything in nature is balanced with the frequency of nature, meaning that it's proportionate in how it exists. So when you see a being that's disproportionate phenotype wise, it allows me to realize that also they may be homogenized, or also they may be having an abnormality in their gene pool that may have been created by mating with other homogenized beings. Okay. Okay, so these are there's a couple other things that I can't think of off the top of my head. I think about them normally, but this is a conversation. And the issue we have here is that we're coexisting on a planet right now that the majority of beings that were, because we're changing, remember, we're changing cycles, and when the cycles change, and divine feminine is now in home court advantage. It's fact. It is what it is. You're seeing it. Everything's being transformed and transferred over to the feminine aspect, who's going to take empowerment. She's healing her aspects of herself, and also she's starting to show up in home court advantage, meaning she will have things allotted to her that will allow for her healing a lot easier, and also for her to propel herself into status quo of beings that will be in leadership coming in this cycle. Okay, so that's happening. You see it in movies. They always do it. Whenever there's transference of power, if some of you in corporate America, you know what I mean, you'll start to see trickling effects before someone comes and does a corporate takeover. So you start to see the cups and the mugs changing, or in the coffee rooms, things changing, or the dynamics of the offices are changing. That's part of the getting you prepared for the changes coming. It's the same with the home court advantage. There's been a trickling over effect where you're starting to see it out in society and movies and, you know, and advertisements and everything. You're starting to see that come into placement. But whenever you see beings that are not balanced phenotype wise and out of balance with nature, with the planet, remember, planet Tiamat has a natural order. She does. She has a natural phenotype of beings that coexist here. They're harmonic body-wise, physicality-wise, and they're harmonic with all of everything that comes naturally on her surface of her planet. Okay, so when people look out of balance phenotype wise, meaning that something's off with them, and you'll notice it, and usually children are the first to notice it, because unfortunately children will notate it easier. They'll notice a child who looks a little different. Maybe their arms are a little longer. Maybe their facial features are a little different than others. And I'm not talking about the propelment of racial speciesism that goes on, a complexionism. We're not talking about this. I'm talking about children will denote other children's difference phenotype wise quicker than adults would. Okay, because they notice that difference. They notice the oddness of someone's look more so. They'll call it out. Children, you know, they don't really care. I love that children are so honest, but they can be a little, depending on the type of parents they've been reared by, they can be cruel, okay, and how they take note of this. Okay, so based on the system, we have had for the last, I'd say, what is it? Maybe maybe about 800 years. I'd say that plus, 800 years plus. We've had homogenized beings that have taken over the planet and have flip mode all the system in an inverted genre, meaning that everything that they're promoting is an inversion of inverted to what nature is. They are propelling things that are natural. They are that are anti-nature. So what I say is this. If you look now, let's fast forward, because that's 800 years. I say 800 years. It's probably previous to that, because obviously there have been a lot of homogenized beings that have been having rulership over the planet. And you can see by some of the unnatural things that are going on in the terraforming that is in discord to the harmonics of Mother Tiamat's frequency. Okay, everything's non-harmonic. All right, so you'll go to certain places, and that's why I tell people in agricultural networking, be careful of bringing plants, and that's why certain places and countries don't allow you to bring certain pods or plants from one region to another, because it will throw off the imbalance of nature in another place. So if I take a palm tree that is indigenous to maybe Indonesia or Thailand and I bring it to Florida and I plant it, you will cause discord in nature, because now you have something that is not indigenous from here, and it has a different release of oxygen. Also, it has its own defense mechanisms that may kill other plant lives around. So this will cause disharmony in nature. You're starting to cause imbalance. And also the type of things that may do to the insects or the plants around it or the soil. It may do something different. Now you take that in a massive and a heightened degree, you're going to cause an offset in nature, and then you'll start to get freakish type of animals showing up, or insects, or behavior that's not that is not in sync with the environment. Do you see what I mean? It's the same with that. Now you take beings. We talk about plants, right? I'm talking about taking plants that are not from here and planting them and seeing how that causes discord. But let's take people that are homogenized and genetically modified, and you place them in regions or in a planet, let's just say a whole planet, where they're in discord in their nature, and their basic physiology is in discord to the planet, meaning in their their behavioral patterns, meaning they are anti-everything. Where do you think we get all this deforestation? Where do you think we get all these beings that like to cut down all the trees but plant all to build more buildings, more archonic type of systems? Where do you think we get this ideology that this whacked out weather where it's really cold one day and then hot another day? That has to do with the the homogenized beings being so out of whack with nature and the planet that they're existing on, because they're not from here, or they were created in a laboratory, so they have no kinship to any form of nature. So everything that they create or perpetuate is anti-nature. Okay, so homogenized beings are anti in nature, by nature, by all, even in the sexuality that they will choose to engage in fruitless sex, and they will perpetuate necrophilia, bestiality, pedophilia, because they are anti-nature. Now, I will talk about it to people located in the Middle East, and they're male-based, who have this anti-feminine. I would question their a lot of the beings who are in the Middle East now. Remember, the Middle East did not exist. It used to be Africa before it was colonized and named the Middle East. That was all Africa. There was no such thing as the Middle East. I think previous to the 20s, don't quote me on that. Someone will look that up. You can look that up yourself. There was no such thing as the Middle East. The Middle East people were not people that were indigenous from those regions. Some of them came from Eurasia, where they came from parts of Asia and Europe. And then there's another group of people that were actually came from Africa. Now, the interesting thing is that most people don't realize Africans come with different types of phenotypes. Common phenotype, common complexions, but different phenotypes and as far as hair textures, okay? So you can be from, quote unquote, I'll call it Middle East for lack of no better term right now, because most of you will be able to understand what I'm talking about when I said a Middle East. You will have someone from the Middle East, from like Sudan, who has really, really rich chocolate skin, very linear features, very sharp features, thinner lips sometimes, and straight hair, but they're very, very dark, right? But those are Africans, okay? But then you'll go somewhere in like the Congo, and you'll see people, mostly in jungles, where people's lips are a little more swollen, more robust. Nose is a little wider, because when you come to jungle, when you come from more tropical areas, your nose is a little wider. Their eye setting is a little much more doe-like. Okay, and their hair is maybe a little more thick and coily, or closed coils. Okay, so where it seals, it protects the head, the actual skull. Okay, different being, same continent, right? Different type of phenotype that shows up, or physicality that shows up, but similar, meaning they complexion-wise, they all share a heightened amount of melanin. Okay, where was I going with this? Okay. So I was noting that in the Middle East, when we can detail some of the homogenized behavior, is you have males who are anti-female, which is homogenized behavior. It can be socialized as well. Homogenized behavior becomes socialized, so then you don't even know who's homogenized anymore. Because if you socialize a behavior, then everybody acts the part. They now are perpetuating the status quo that the homogenized, genetically modified people created, and then you have humans that are perpetuating the same system of non-human behavior, because it's been perpetually introduced to their society and consistently replicated and promoted every day, all day, in culture and religion, what have you. It's a systematic form of mind control. Okay, so when you have the Middle East and you have males that are anti-female, and when I say anti-female, some would disagree with me. This is where some of the arguments come in, especially with the Brothers of Islam. You will talk to them and say any form of nature would be harmonic with females, and it wouldn't be in suppression of it. It would be in exhalation of it. They would exalt them, okay? Because in nature, the one who is the creator of life is the one that's usually exalted, meaning that that's the one that they protect the most. Even in hives and in colonies, they protect the queen with their lives. You got soldiers coming out, hundreds of ant soldiers going to die, knowing they not caring if they're going to go to their death, and they will die for their queen. Because the point of the matter is that queen perpetuates she is the one who gives growth to the colony. She is the head of the colony. She replicates all aspects of their society. She replicates all the other ants. Without her, there is no colony. So they altruistically get that. They will go out and go to the death. They will battle and get their heads decapitated from other red ants or brown ants or what have you. It's what happens. So it's same with bees. Insects have this. That's why we're ruled under a queen. Somebody made that video the other day. We're ruled under one queen, and there's actually 3 queens to my knowledge. one that's most unnatural is the one that's perpetuated in society. The other ones you don't know about. Um, yeah, the ants are no joke. You want to go and watch a wonderful Natural Geographics? Go watch ants. You don't even have to do it. Go outside and watch ants right before it rains, because right before it rains is when ants come out, and you see ants, come out of the ground. That's how I know it's going to rain too. So you come out, watch the ants. Watch another bug come into where a colony of red ants are, or another dominant ant figure. They will battle, they will tear it apart, and then take it and bring it to their offspring. They're one of the most fascinating group of insects that you could possibly watch, and it's great for your children to watch that dynamics too. But let's go back to the Middle East. You have beings that are perpetually, they've also created a religion that perpetuates the same homogenized behavior. Okay, they're anti-female, and why they're anti-female is because they don't exalt her. They suppress her and they cover her, and they perpetually denounce her power in the structure of the household. Okay, even when a woman has a child in the household and it's a male, he has more say and power over even his mother. And I've seen it before, and it's sick. It's not all of Islam, but it is when you start going to the Middle East and you start seeing how that religious structure was built, and the suppression of women and how it shows up. It's sick. It's sick. And it's very disheartening to watch that, because if they have women, if they keep giving birth to women and girls, sometimes the girls don't even have a voice. It's not all, because when you go to places like Saudi Arabia, it's a little more, it's a wealthier society. Women are a little more astute when you see them, because there's more wealth. So sometimes you see it show up a little differently, okay, in society. And that's a homogenized society based on homogenized beings perpetuating a homogenized state of structure that ends up becoming a culture or a religion that's perpetuated and creating that. So you see how you get the inversion of inverted nature. Everything that's anti-nature is being perpetuated in that structure of religion that was based and created by homogenized genetically modified beings. Okay. We'll get into the pedophilia aspect. Also, there's a denotion, and also in the Hebrew Israelites are into this too, which is another form of cultural MK Ultra with the Hebrew Israelites, who believe a girl who hits her menses is appropriate for sexual interaction with a grown man. Now, I always question it like this. If you're saying that a young girl who's 8 to 12, because girls get their menses from any age, you can get them as young as 8, and you can get them as old as 15. Girls, depending on their cycle and their genetic background. But girls can get their menses anytime. So you're telling me because she turns 8 or 15, she's appropriate for sex. Okay, so let's hold that as if it's a plausible impossibility. Why is it that grown men that are in their 40s and 50s would be okay as a proper mate for her? So she's okay for that. Wouldn't she be sleeping and having sexual activity with males in her same age group? Wouldn't she be appropriate for males? This is what y'all are saying, some of the Islam factions. If that's the case, why would she be with a man who's in his depreciative state, where his genealogy is broken down, where he's not going to have the best and healthiest children post 40? So why would you think a post 40 man who's at the most depreciative genetic wise would be applicable to mating him with a young girl in her first, not even in her full-fledged cycle of her menses coming on? That doesn't even make any sense. So, you know what I'm saying? That's how you know they make things up to suit their perversions and pedophilia. When you start looking at the child weddings of grown men in their 40s and 50s and 60s marrying 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, and you think and you see mothers giving their children, that's a homogenized society. That was based on beings that weren't human, that were homogenized, that were genetically grafted in laboratories, put out in society, and now making rules and regulations and promoting unnatural, inverted nature. And this is what you start to see, is the sickness showing up. Yes, the entire planet is under a form of mind control. It's freeing up at this point, though. Obviously, it's freeing up because we're having this conversation and the live is still up. Okay, we should be grateful. I am grateful that we are in the States and we can have this conversation, because a lot of other countries, everything's censored. You couldn't have this on a public forum. And if we had this conversation in any of the Middle East right now as women, we would be beheaded and we would be killed. I've seen lines of grown men, military men, take a grandmother because she took off her thing for a moment to maybe clean her hair, and shoot her in front of the populace just for point, in front of her own children or her grandchildren. That's happened. I've seen it. So that's a homogenized society. That is also why they get a lot of karmic debt with all the mass amount of bombings and murders going on in the Middle East, because of their egregious behavior and their anti to females. Anytime you're anti to female and the matriarchy, there will be a rough consequence. Remember, we're in a different cycle. We're in home court advantage. So any society that is anti-feminine and anti-female and anti-matriarchy will be dealt with swiftly. That is why the Middle East is under such attack, and that is why its people and men are being subjugated to all kinds of prejudice and abuses, because the same things that they have imposed upon the female aspects of their society, their mothers, their sisters, their daughters, is the same thing outsiders do. I've talked about this even with the brown men in the United States. Why we see such an egregious behavior towards males, brown males, especially in the United States, where they're being killed in the massive droves on the street unarmed, is because of the behavior of the brown men that are anti-female. So now the society, remember what you are, your environment is a reflection of who you are. So when you're anti everything, the environment will be anti to you. So there is a swift consequence to males, especially now as we have home court advantage, to any males that are anti-feminine, anti-female, anti-mother. They will have a swift consequence. And this is why you also see people bringing up Nature Not, Eligio Bishop, Father Tahuti, whatever his name is now, from Melanation, Carbonation, whatever he calls himself. That's why you're starting to see so many women going in the droves and anti to him, because he is anti-matriarch. He is anti-feminine. He is an abuser of women based on the fact that he has some insecurities and has been disheartened from a child and abused, and he's grown up to be an aversion. Remember, we talked about anything that is an aversion to nature, it shows up in society as something, abusive to natural components of nature. So let's go back to the homogenized being, the GMOs on this planet. They have created society where there's a consistent and perpetual promotion of pedophilia, having sex with children, which is a sign that you're sick. Okay, you're mentally ill. And mental illness does come from being, an anomaly showing up, whether it's the psychosis comes from birth, from the mother's trauma. Also, anyone who's having fruitless sex, meaning that their objective is not to create children. That is a form of genetically homogenized beings. And this is where you get a lot of people who have issues with me having this conversation, because they want me to accept inverted systems that have been perpetuated to you, that everything in society is sexually is healthy. It is not. That is a lie. If you are having sex in a way, I've talked about anal tantra. If you are having anal sex, especially perpetually, you are anti-nature. You are. That is not a natural form of sex. That is a state of sexuality that is incorporated in death, more in necrophilia. Of necrophilia. Because society right now is ruled by genetically inhomogenized beings, they will tell you that having anal sex is healthy and that it's okay for you to do, and they'll equate it to people of certain sexualities. Not all homosexuals have anal sex. Let's just state that, okay? So that is not natural. And if you want to go toe to toe with me, I can bring you the status quo and the stats of men or women that have perpetual anal sex and show you what happens to them after having anal sex for many, many years. They have to get stitches. They're unable to hold in their excrement because that is a muscle back there. That is an exit point that is meant to exit waste. There's a lot of diseases, and fecal material on a penis or on a vagina is not healthy. It is an exit point for a reason. If there's no entry point, that means you shouldn't be having sex in that way. That's just what it is. And you could sit all day because, people will go all day and say, oh, you're being anti-homosexual. I'm being pro-nature. So if me telling you something that is true, that is unnatural, and stating it, the fact of the matter that you would even go toe to toe and fight that or get very upset with it, it is a state, there is a state of consciousness that will say to you that that is a homogenized mind thought, and also you might have been homogenized in that behavior is something that is been created to you by parents having drugs, mothers doing drugs when they're pregnant. That happens whenever a mother does drugs when she's pregnant or she's traumatized and abused. She will create a child that has abnormalities in their sexuality as far as an imbalance, usually hormonally, and that's a fact. And we've done studies, and also abroad, whenever mothers have issues with their children or as far as the imbalance of the hormones, doctors won't do it here because we're living under a system of genetically modified beings who are perpetuating inverted sexuality in order to cause all kinds of mental state of beings that are unnatural to the society. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, if you go abroad and you tell them that something's going on with your son or your daughter and they're imbalanced, they will give them something to make their hormones more balanced, so that their mind, thought, and body are in sync with one another and not in imbalance. That's all it is. Food is doing it the same. It's the same with putting tons of soy in the food. All this soy that's in the food. Listen. I could do a whole video on Whole Foods. Every item, every product, everything has soy. Your shampoos have soy. They have put they put soy in everything. And soy is an estrogen mimicker. And then you wonder why the dispositions of the males are showing up in a certain way. Okay, it's very important for you to understand this and to have these conversations without being fearful that people will think that you're anti them. No, I am pro nature. Just like I will tell you all day that it's unhealthy to eat a seedless watermelon. So when I say that, would you get upset with me? Would you get upset if I said to you, I don't think it's watermelons, because I know that it's not a healthy fruit and your body does not recognize it as such. So it will digest it in a way, but it won't recognize it. So it may cause issues, gastric issues, and over long periods of time, it may even alter your own genetics. Would you get upset with me with that? Probably not. You would say, well, there's some truth to that, FleurBrun. So when I say to you that there are parts in our society of genetically modified beings who are perpetually promoting fruitless, harmful sexuality that is causing mental instability in people, then would you get mad at me the same? It's the same thing I'm talking about. One is a fruit, one is a person. Okay. So let's not battle this, because I think a lot of times people think I'm anti anything. I'm pro nature. I'm pro nature. I also am pro treating people with respect and dignity and not being abusive. Just like the little girl that showed up with blonde hair and pink eyes, very fair skin, in the middle of Iraq, wherever she was. Would you think I would promote someone harming her, treating her like a lab rat, being abusive to her? Absolutely not. Zero. Because I think all people deserve a certain level of respect, however they show up or not. So if someone shows up in a way that is you have a right to disrespect them or to treat them, to ill-treat them. I disagree with that. It's not right to mistreat people because they show up as an anomaly from a sick system. So you mad at people that show up with anomalies because they've been homogenized based on chemicalization of foods and air and water? Mothers are doing drugs when they're pregnant or previous to the pregnancy, so that causes children to show up with adversities in their propensities, whether it be their sexuality or their behavioral patterns or their lack of being able to feel happy or being depressed or bipolar. A lot of this is chemicalization causing a lot of these issues, okay, for people to be non-harmonic, okay? Also, we have to take into consideration, we have males who are having sex past their age that would be normal for them, and they're also creating children, which is causing disharmony in nature. Okay, so men, like I said, it is unnatural for a 40-plus man who is in his degeneration point of view to try to have sex and try to replicate himself with children, with young women in their 8 to 15 pubescent stage. If we're going to have the conversation that you think it's healthy for a young girl to have sex at that age, why wouldn't she be having sex with males her same age then? Why would she have sex with males that are post their healthy stage? And the problem is we're giving men Cialis, what is that? What's that thing? Viagra. We're keeping males having sexuality that are post their healthy sexual stage, and then they're going creating children that are non-harmonic. All this to say, because I know this is going to cause urinal. People are going to, they always like to hit me up in the messages. Why are you saying this? Are you saying that because I'm a homosexual that I'm anti-nature? No, I'm not saying that. Why don't we talk about what I am saying? What I'm saying is, if you are harmonic and non-genetically modified or homogenized in belief, practices, or genomes, you would engage in forms of sex and sexuality that are harmonic to nature. That's it. However you slice it, dice it, take it in, field it in, that's on you. But I am totally in overstanding that nature has balance. And when you're showing up with beings that are imbalanced to nature, they will perpetuate ideologies and forms of systems of psychology that are in non-harmony with nature. When you see someone like Nature Boy calling himself nature, which is an idiosyncrasy in itself, that's all. When you have someone called Nature Boy who shows up calling himself Nature Boy and he does everything anti-nature, he's abusive to the women in his camp. Okay, he was also he comes from something that was unnatural, which was not his fault. I won't say that. Karmically, it may have been something he's done in his previous life to come into that scenario, because remember, none of us are victims here, okay? So, but he goes and he poops on trees and he justifies it. You think that's natural? I don't even see animals do that. Sometimes you see dogs do it because they've been domesticated and altered in their natural mindset. Animals don't even go and poop on trees, okay? They don't do that cognitively, and they don't poop near their camp, because that's why dogs, when they even take they poop, they kick dirt over it and cover it. But they don't do it where they eat or sleep or anything like that, because they have an unconscious level of awareness that is non-harmonic. It's not healthy to do that. So when you see somebody calling themselves nature and they do everything anti-nature, that's also a testament that we're dealing with beings that have the psychology to be able to manipulate other people's minds and kind of bypass their cerebral cortex, which I told you, the reptilians have that capability. They do it all the time, and propose to you unnatural ideologies that people will take in, and automatically, because it's a trend, they will take it in as truth. What about people who have those toilets that go into nature? Well, you're talking about cesspools. Yeah, I mean, that's different. We're not talking about like septic tanks or what is it called? Compost toilets, which, I go to the home. I love going to the home shows where they have natural eco homes where they have that. That's different, because that's a form of conscious levels of disseminating of waste, being resourceful and not using too much water to do so. So they do it in a way that kind of takes away the moisture out of the poop. It's a system that has been created with mindful people who create a system so they'll be able to compost their waste with limited water resources, and also do it in a way that's hygienic. That's a totally different thing than someone just making up something in their mind because maybe that's what he had to do. Maybe he was abused and the only way he could go to the bathroom was out in nature. We don't know what that woman, he's talked about a woman who reared him, a foster mother who abused him. And this is where we say, this is where we have to go to the source of the unnatural behavior. There are homogenized beings who were in rulership and have influenced society, and they have created anti-nature behavior and perpetuated it enough where it's become part of societal hues and cues and their what they do. That's it. And it's unnatural. So we have to talk to the fact that we are now now we're entering the age of Aquarius. We have not gone there yet. The age of truth. So now, as we can't change what we don't acknowledge. A lot of us didn't even know or realize that our system of doing thing was unnatural. You know what I mean? Remember, 20 years ago, what was it? No. 30 years ago, people were smoking cigarettes on the plane. I don't know if you remember when they had Pan Am. I'm a woman of a certain age. I don't think I've ever taken a Pan Am, but I know this from hearing from my parents. People were allowed to smoke cigarettes on a plane with other people who didn't smoke. Okay, so society is progressing. We're progressing. We're not doing as many archaic things as we used to do, but there are still certain principles and aspects of society that are anti-nature that are being perpetuated as a form of population control, also replicating unnatural reptilians or beings that are anti-nature to make sure that they have control over the populace to a certain degree, keeping them in a suppressed or limited state of consciousness so that they have free reign to do what they want. Okay, it's what it is. And again, I've had to go toe to toe, and sometimes I choose to do it toe to toe with aspects of religious, patriarchal religious participants, because they are participants, and go toe to toe with them and denote that, listen, me having an opinion, if that bothers you, whether you agree with it or not, it's a testament that something, if it bothers you to the point where you want to suppress me and subjugate me and depreciate me, there's something going on psychologically with you that has to do with your own insecurities and rather not myself. And also, if it's a system that is a religious factor that has created that type of perpetual suppression, that denotes the type of beings that created that patriarchal corporate religion that had a benefit of doing that. Oh, they smoked in hospitals too? Wait. They even smoked in hospitals? Oh, El Sheba. See, I'm saying this used to be the case. Wait. Is marriage really unnatural? I thought when I have sex with you are spiritually married. This is an interesting one because this will be based on interpretation. My take, and it's only mine because many people have different takes on this. The system of marriage that was created was meant to subjugate women because in the marital union, the majority of responsibility has to be upheld by the woman, more so, in my opinion. Okay, now in other societies maybe not, but in this society I found that most women, I've been married and I was married for 17 years, and know people have been married plus that. The majority of responsibility and morality and ethics is usually has to be upheld mostly to the women. The women have to have it's expected of women to uphold the system of marital status more so than I find males. I find that the system was created purposefully to suppress women more so because I know men who are married who sleep with various women. I'm not hanging with them. I just know of men who are married. Many of them are in NBA or in sports or regular Joes who are having perpetual sex with women outside of the marital status, and all the men around them know about it and say nothing about it and think it's okay. But I know very little women previously. I'll say that's changed. I don't agree with it because I feel like if you make that kind of level of commitment, then you should make the commitment. If you don't want to be in that commitment, just talk about it and change the level of commitment. But back in the day, I knew less women who were doing that kind of, stepping out of the marital base and going and engaging sexually with outsiders than the marriage. Okay. But I found there was more of a support for men doing non-marital things than there was for women. So women are supposed to uphold a system of suppression, because that's all marriage is basically saying you're mine, I'm yours. It's a form of slavery, but mostly it's a tethered slavery that's really for the woman. This is my opinion. And that just may be in the States. I don't want to talk about other, because I've seen and heard, but I can't tell you what I don't know. I've seen other forms of marriage that seem a little healthier. I loved being married. I really appreciate being married, but I'm just a different type of person. I'm okay with being with one person sexually for long periods of time. As you see, I come from a mother and father who did it, and aunts and uncles. That's all I've known. So I've been systematically trained to have that level of commitment. I've just been trained based on what I've grown up with. Not everybody's been trained under that. Okay. So I also see men who are able to uphold and be with one woman for long periods of time. Not all men are built like that. Not all women are built like that. I think marriage to a certain degree is more slave based. It's just my opinion. Okay. Does that mean you shouldn't want to be married? It depends on you. A lot of marriage women are getting into well, yeah, that's why I say back in the days women didn't get as saucy as men. Now a lot of men, the karma is because a lot of men sat idly. Remember, silence is banter for injustice. So when men sat idly and talked and allowed for women to be disrespected, disregarded, and they did things that were against the marital status quo, what they did is energetically they built up enough residual. So now karmically men are paying, because a lot of men I know have wives who have boyfriends who are coming to the house when they're at work and having sex with them, or are having sex with their neighbors, or having casual sex. I'm not friends. Notice I say I'm not friends with them. I walk in the world very free and clear. I see everything, and people like to share. I'm non-judgmental in that way. They like to share their personal, endeavors. And I notice a lot more women. So, and also I notice young girls have a lot more male partners sexually, even when they're attached supposedly to one. They don't feel as bound or dedicated to men as they used to, but that's karmic debt. When men sat idly, even men who did not engage in having multiple partners, what they did is they built up residual. And now even when guys are really pent or really into a one female, she more likely has definitely a couple suitors now, because she does not trust his integrity. So now you have women who are young girls too, especially the younger factions, the millennials. They have multiple partners, and they do it just with the same level of detachment. This is homogenized behavior based on the fact that they've been traumatized by seeing their mothers hurt or lied to, their aunts being lied to, their fathers who were rolling stones. When you create that kind of system, there's residuals that come with that. So now you have a lot of women that have no, and I'm saying, I can tell you now to this point, the majority of women out here are non-exclusive to one. And that has to do with the karmic debt that comes to men. It's the same reason I tell you that brown men are getting residuals from how they treat their mothers, sisters, and daughters by getting treated the same way by cops, the authority figures. I'm in the younger gen, and I'm non-exclusive. But we got to be careful, because I tell the young sea stars, I know that you've seen pain. You may have been traumatized by seeing your father or being hurt, but just because that happened doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. You know what I mean? Sexual energy is something you should be very careful engaging with multiple partners. Also, you have to be mindful, because there's sexual transmitted demons. So every time you engage sexually with someone, you have the risk of accruing some of their baggage, or some of their incubus and succubus. You know, my thing is, be the one that you want to attract. I'm very loyal. I love beyond the perimeters of what's natural in the matrix. I attract men who adore me and love me to that degree. So I am what I attract. So be the type of woman or man that you want to attract, and then you'll attract more like you. The problem is most people are lacking self-awareness, so they attract demons, what they consider to be demons or debauchers. And I told you before, my Nazi, I attracted that because I had a level of that type of, again, I was aggressive with males. I'm aggressive with males. I can be very aggressive with males. It's a shadow. It's a shadow. I told you about this before. I was a daddy's girl. I was loved beyond perimeters by my father, adored, and treated like a goddess. The heavens rose with me and my father, just what it was. And because of that, I had little tolerance for men who didn't uphold me in that light. And I could be egregious and at the point I was just aggressive. So I met my match with my Nazi. I did. To a certain level, I wasn't a victim in that. So I always say it hurt my heart enough, but it allowed me to see aspects of myself that were unhealthy. Okay, so it is what it is. You know, I had to go through that spiritual boot camp to learn aspects of myself, but also the tragedies that I experienced in that relationship long term had to do with a lot of things that I was unwilling to even acknowledge, because again, because I grew up quote unquote healthier with two parents that loved each other, I just didn't see anything wrong with some of my egregious behavior or my commandingness. That's why it takes me a long time to mate with the proper mate, because I need a specific type of mate that has a little more patience with the type of female that I am. I'm not growing in the marriage. And I only took 17 years. Oh my God, that's so long. So yeah, it's 17 years is a long time. I learned it. I enjoyed it. It's all the 17 years wasn't in vain, you know. Remember, I like to enjoy life, so you know, my Nazi had a problem with that too. But you know, I enjoyed. I met somebody who was my match as far as teaching me aspects of myself, showing idiosyncrasies that I was unwilling to change or morph without force, and I shape shifted my consciousness because of it. So it is what it is. You know, it took me longer. Some of you, it doesn't have to take as long. Some of you just get it by the concept of having this conversation. Maybe you didn't have your mama or auntie talk to you about things like this. So maybe this conversation is enough to make you shape shift your consciousness. You were married once because it was expected. Yeah. Both of us felt married and didn't think we needed the contract, but got pressured into it. He passed early. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. You said you may be asexual. Ebony said she may be asexual. There are people who are asexual. That's what I'm saying. But be careful with that, because that could be a form of homogenizing by society. Like, okay, so let's go back, because you know I'm going all sidebar. Homogenized beings. Some beings are homogenized by their genetics, but also you could be homogenized by societal cues and hues and imprints. You can also be that's socially. Then you can be homogenized and genetically morphed in your patterns of behavior, anti-nature behavior, by forms of genetically modified foods, which change your molecular structure and your chemistry, changes your pheromones too. So these are all ways that you can be genetically homogenized. Now, the majority of society before was homogenized. Majority of people in your political systems are all homogenized. You look at them. Also, homogenized people usually have weird eye patterning, like the way that they look is either mesmerizing or off. That's a homogenized. Yeah, it's weird. Eye setting is also a form of you can tell genetically modified people by their eye setting. Kim K's ass is a form of Paul. I don't know if her buttocks is real, Kim. It's not proportion to her body. That's also a form of genetic modification. Genetically, GMOs have altered their body frame. All beings that are naturally from this planet that are harmonic look harmonic with the planet. Go to places where you go to the jungles. Let's go to the jungles of South America. Let's look at the imprint. Some of you, if you have time, go to look at National Geographic. Look at the way the beings look. You will see shorter beings. They're the color of the trees or the soil. Okay, sometimes they put even more dirt or soil on, markings on them, make them look more clay-like. Okay, so they look the color of the trees and the dirt and the soil. They look almost to the point where they stand next to a flower or they stand next to the tree and they stand out in the open. They match their general environment, complexion-wise, in stature, the way that they look, meaning they can be hidden without being attacked by animals. They're very, they have anonymity in that way in nature. Those are people that are harmonic to their general locale. I would say that those are non-genetically modified beings based on the fact that they're harmonic, phenotype-wise, and characteristic-wise, and the way that their pattern of behavior and living in nature, they're in sync with nature. Those are non-homogenized beings. That is my take on that. Okay? If you are someone who is out of sync with your general location, you look in aversion, meaning if you stood out in nature just bare and you would stick out as a sore thumb, you are not harmonic with nature, because you would look so alike to everything around you that it would be hard to even notice you. If you stick out like a sore thumb, bucket naked. Big up to all the braless nistas that did the braless day. I really appreciate you for going braless. Free and clear, my mate. My mate did have a problem. Not with me being braless, but with me publicizing it. I big up to Kirk. Oh, again, I appreciate my mate for the patience that he has in having a mate that is so publicly out there and just keeps it 1,000. You know, it takes a certain kind of male to be able to tolerate that. It's a toleration, I say, because some of the behavior I'm doing is not necessarily something that would be harmonic to a male and a male in you know, in a natural form. I have been a vegetarian for a year. It's crazy how meat is like a drug withdrawal. Oh, because most of the meat you're eating is not real, right? Empress Light, you joined us in the bra list. Listen, it was freeing. I had to wear a bra the other day though, because I had to be around parents and students, and you already know I can't. I want my young ones to be non-ostracized, so I had to wear a bra. But I felt good for a couple days wearing no bra. Yeah, they went braless. I love that you ladies went braless. It was so freeing. I love it. When we go to the jungle and we're free, we're free I'm okay, I'm sidebarring. I'm sorry. I get happy whenever I talk about the braless moment. Oh, it was so beautiful. So for those who are eating meat still, I had a Kiki session. Big up to Jason. Who was it? Jeremy. Big up to Jeremy. I did a Kiki session with Jeremy. Big up to you. A young man, young 21. He's so spry. I love you. You know what? You young people inspire me because remember, you're my ancestor. A lot of you are older, soul-wise than myself. It's so beautiful to talk to some of you. You have such reverence. Anyway, Jeremy was talking about what he should eat. And I said, listen, if you're a meat eater, I don't criticize you anymore. Remember, I used to talk about, and I still talk about veganism and vegetarianism being a healthy lifestyle for some. But I don't make it a one-all, be-all, because not all of you are the same species. Not all of you come from the same geographical, like, oh, look at, we have the most beautiful dragon. I'm sorry. I'll go off on this video. And I was talking about the different meats that I thought he was, because he told me where he was from. His family was from the, what was it, Oklahoma area. And I told him that he would do best eating meats that are buffalo, venison, what's the other one? Bison. And people are like, where do you get these names from? They sell that. I hope you know that they sell. Now you got to go to a stushy, bougie place to probably get it in a more holistic place, but they do have those forms of meat if you're going to engage in them. Yes, animals are tortured. Fairy magic, you're absolutely correct. And this is, remember, when I became a vegetarian and vegan, it was for the animal rights issue. I didn't join it for health. Okay. When I did it when I was 15, it wasn't for health. It was because I was an animal activist. I'm an elemental too. So seeing animals caged, eaten, tortured, cows being raped by tubes to get them pregnant. I mean, it's horrific. So my reason for joining the vegan vegetarian community was way different than most. Some are joining it for health. Some are joining it because it's a trend right now. It is what it is. It's just what I did. I did hang out with Nistas that used to throw paint on women who wore furs on Fifth Avenue. Big up to Tracy. She got arrested. I stayed out of that because my parents would not understand me throwing paint. She was a little more stushy and her bail money was a little more allotted than mine. My parents wouldn't have been too happy to pay bail money for me throwing red paint on a woman's fur jacket that cost her, $10,000-$20,000. But Tracy didn't care. And we used to go and, she felt like if you want to wear a fur coat, you should wear the red that came with the fur coat. I didn't agree. Well, I didn't disagree at the time. Remember, I was young. This is many, many years ago. This is how the animal activists used to be. It was a little bouty. We don't do that anymore. Cows are raped. When I say put tubes, tubes are shoved in their vaginas and they're inseminated artificially with sperm of other of some of the bulls. Yeah, that's rape. That's a form of rape. The cow didn't ask to be impregnated. It wasn't even done naturally. So a lot of cows were inseminated with bulls. Never even met the bull. And she had his penis, his sperm injected. See, I'm going to get hostile now. See, this is when you'll see some of the vegan vegetarian in me, because that to me is horrific. Okay, that's horrific. You can allow for them to meet and say, hey, let's Let's have some chemistry. You're just, that's abuse. That's abuse. Okay? So that's why I joined the vegan vegetarian community. It wasn't like for all these trendy people thinking it's cute to be raw. I did it because I disagree with how they mistreat animals, and I feel like I had more respect. I had more respect for people, indigenous, who were hunters, who hunted one animal, gave respect and honor to that animal, and they kept it. They ate all the meat, and then anything left over they utilized for clothing or what have you. I had more respect for that. Or hunters who actually eat everything. Okay, I have a problem with people who farm animals. Is it okay to eat eggs? I mean, eggs and milk. I mean, that's more of a vegetarian. Remember, there's a difference between vegetarian and vegans, right? So vegetarians are allotted to consume eggs, honey, and some animal products, not the flesh aspect of it, but more of that eggs. It depends on how you see that. Is it okay? It depends on your consciousness. Now, where there might be an issue is because some people who go into vegetarian and veganism get sick. And I've been able to see that more so than many of you who are newer vegans and vegetarians. I've lived over 20, I could say over 30 years into veganism, enough to see what happens to someone who doesn't get enough mineral source and nutrition, and some people die from that long term because you no longer have stocks of B12 in your system. And not everybody absorbs B12 just from eating veggies, and long term it could cause problems. So I always tell people, be more flexitarian in how you eat as you require your nutrients. Okay, I prefer you get your nutrients from food sources than from supplements, because supplements don't give it to you in a natural way. Even if you get holistic value in your supplements, you still don't get it in a very healthy way. The best way to get resources and minerals and vitamins is from your foods. Okay, food. Oh, Eliza wants braless. You want braless? That's right, Eliza. Eliza Mack, big up to y'all. Don't get arrested, though. Some of us bigger, bustier. No, but my little Teta's friend, she's... let me stop. I'll get all kinds of inappropriate on here. Big up to all the nieces and want braless. I support you. Anyway, the iron, also getting some bladder is really good for those, especially with your thyroid issues. Sea moss, which is many of us Irish sea moss is very common in the Caribbean. We do things with sea moss. Sea moss has wonderful trace minerals and so on. I love to make shakes with them. Oh, and you can make like pudding with them. Sea moss I grew up on, so I love, especially if you go to Caribbean events, they make like the best sea moss. They put like cinnamon in there. They make it like a milkshake, and you mix it together. For those who like Dr. Sebi put that on, right? Elle Summers. Dr. Sebi's the bomb.com, because he knew, because that's something we do in our Caribbean communities. We do have sea moss, also carrot juice. What's the other sour seed, which cleans out which cleans out your blood. That's very Caribbean. We do things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do when you're a vegetarian and vegan, but we have lazy vegetarian and vegans. We have starchitarians who become vegans and just do it for a trend to say that they're vegans and vegetarians, because all of their friends and all of the celebrities are saying, oh, I'm a vegetarian and vegan. So they just want to join the paddy wagon. There's other homogenized. That's another genetically modified thing. Always wanted to join the fads. They join it and they don't realize that you have to actually know what you're doing, because it's not natural for you living in an unnatural society to eat natural food, because you're not living in the jungle. You're not living where you can pick from the vine. You are not growing your own food where you compost, where the soil is rich enough to actually absorb some mineral content in your fruits and vegetables. So you have people who become vegetarians and vegans who are just starchitarians. All they do is eat potato, like nature not. Potatoes and avocados and rice. And that will get you sick. That will get you very, very sick, and your cholesterol will rise. Also, it'll depreciate. So it's going to block. It'll be a beta blocker eventually. You're going to have a whole lot of issues. Yeah, they eat potato chips all day. Those are starchitarians. I know them. I've gone to gatherings with them. Big up to the starchitarians. They're wild. They eat chocolate and chips. I'm serious. If you're a part of vegan, you already know, you meet them. Some of you are them. That's unhealthy. Long term, you're gonna have issues. And remember, we stock our mineral source. So you may listen. I have obviously I have a lot of steerage, but you stock all your calcium, you stock your B12, you stock them up. So some of you will be like, I've been a vegetarian for 10 years and I look good, and then all of a sudden, the 11th year, you get sick and you can't recover for another 3 or 4 years. You know why? It's because you were fine being depreciated of all those mineral stocks when you had them in your steerage, when you had them in stock. As soon as you ran out of with the stock and your body didn't have it anymore, that's when you see the depreciation and people fall off the cliff of health, because they didn't realize that they were living off their steerage, their stockage of mineral resources and vitamins in their own system from when they were little, from years of eating meat or whatever they were eating. And then as soon as they go vegetarian and so on, they utilize all their stocks. And then eventually what happens is that you use all your steerage, your stocks, your storage, and then you end up having multiple health issues. Teeth breaking, nails breaking, hair broken, skin jaundice, bones crackle, muscle jaundice, all kinds of issues. So just be careful. I just say be mindful. Not everybody's meant to be a vegetarian and vegan. I don't promote it like that. I say it's better for you to be a healthy flexitarian and eat mostly vegetables and fruits, but add in meat sources if necessary. Be conscious about the meat sources. I always say go to halal or kosher, which if you think slaying an animal could be, somewhat more appropriate in how they slay the animals, and go organic, do more of the beef, the foods that are like buffalo, more heirloom types of animals, venison. Why don't they sell venison if we have an overpopulation? Because that's their thing. We have an overpopulation of deer. That's why they say they let people hunt all the time. So if we have an overpopulation of deer, that's what they say, which is a lie. How come you don't see more venison on the menus or in the grocery stores? You know why, right? Because if the indigenous people, you brown people, ate venison because your ancestors ate it, you would get some memories. You would have an unleashing of some of your genetic memories, because that's an animal that your ancestors consumed, and there is codes that will be cinched together. You will get certain coding from that. They won't ever let you eat venison like that. You won't see it sold, not here. You got to go up in a cold mountain somewhere in North Kakalaki. Yeah. Del, did you do the inner vibration? What is that? The inner... Did I do the inner vibration meditation yet? No, I did not. I need to do that, right? I'm going to try that. I'm sorry. I probably forgot. I could do that today. Thank you for reminding me that. I'm going to try that today. I'm going to sit, and I don't do meditation like that, but I'll do it. Are biracial people homogenized? Some not. Remember, because you have two complexion of people mating doesn't mean you're a different species. Okay? You have very fair skin, light European looking people who have O positive blood, and you have very cosmic carbon people that are very dark and beautiful cosmic wise, and they're O positive or positive roosts. If you get that lunar who's very fair European who's O positive, and she mates with an O positive brown male, they are the same species. They're just different complexions. One has been more homogenized. Yes, the fairer one most likely is more homogenized based on the fact that her ancestors were probably grafted, based on this, doing that purposefully to make them more susceptible to whatever they do, but they're the same species. So them mating together would create a healthy child. People want me to talk about biracial. There's no such thing as, you can't be biracial unless you have a shot. Now, if they had to give your mama a shot to have you, then you're biracial, and you may be the same color because you are different species. But people of different complexions are the same. If you can mate naturally and you're of the same roost, you're the same species. So there's no such thing as different races. We can't mate with other races unless we're helped. And then you're genetically homogenized. Now, if you told me that she's a brown woman who's O negative and you are a lunar and you're B positive and you mate with her and, oh no, she can hold your child. no, and no, and he's B positive, and she has to get a shot because she can't hold your offspring. You are homogenized. That's homogenizing. Okay, because those abnormality, you can't mate with those people because you're not the same species, so you need assistance. Any child that comes from that is homogenized. Now, does it make them worse? No. Should you abuse them? Absolutely not. So, okay, just like a child, if a mother's doing drugs and a child comes out with all kinds of autoimmune issues, would you abuse that child if they grow up with sicknesses and so on? No. So, this conversation is not to demonize people. It's just to tell you that there's homogenized beings here that have less connection to nature and usually will perpetuate systems of anti-nature based on the fact that they're not natural. It's hard to have natural propensities when you're not natural, when you're ill suited to the nature that you're surrounded by. That's all. When we start getting complexionism, we got to be real careful with that because they purposefully make it seem like brown and lunars are so different. That's untrue. But there are lunars who have been homogenized and there's brown people who have been homogenized. Now, you take two homogenized people, different complexions, then you're going to have a bi-colored, complexioned. And there's no such thing as biracial. Unless you're different species. But there's no such thing as complexion biracial. Brown people and light people are the same people. I don't go to a black cat who has babies with a white cat or spotted cat. Do you go to the cat that's spotted that had babies and call them biracial? By kitties, whatever you call them, of racial piloting these type of these perpetual idiosyncrasies that they're promoting in the society. There's no such thing. People mate with people mate. I appreciate my copper skin, but remember, my grandmother has bright red hair, light butter, what is it, like buttercream eyes and fair skin. She gave birth to children that look either fair or brown, but we're all the same, from the same lineage. Okay, this is my opinion. Don't take everything I say at face value. I have certain opinions based on how I've been raised. Biracials are purposefully done to make people feel like they're not natural, or there's something, or to not pick a side. It's a psychological. That word is psychologically imprinted to purposefully make people feel a certain way. There's no real thing. Like I said, I would say biracial to a person who's mixed with two different species, and they could look totally alike. I say that's biracial. Those are two different together. Are you still going to post a picture of your ET friend? Oh, you talking about the Andromedan? Yeah, by species. Thank you, Sid. By species. I'm going to be very mindful. I feel a little like I love her, and I will share her with you. It might be a little selfish of me to keep her to myself. I was excited when they did the visual. So yeah, I'll probably do a video. I'll have to do a whole video on her. My brother-in-law hunts deers. They eat meat mostly in winter. Yeah, listen, if you're gonna eat meat, if you're a flesh eater, listen, this is what I'll say to you. If you're a flesh eater, be balanced with it and understand that every life that is taken you should be accountable for. Don't just eat mindlessly thinking that animal had no feeling, no necessity to live, didn't desire. I mean, that you should take in consideration. Okay? So, if you're going to consume flesh, be mindful and be considerate and be thankful. That's all. I don't judge you anymore because I've seen too many people get sick. So I don't, if you notice, if you watch my last videos like years ago, you'll notice that I said, I used to say to people, I used to criticize people who ate meat, but this is when you gain wisdom. When you actually gain wisdom and you've lived a long enough time on the planet and you start to see things that are wrong with your mindset or things that are off, and you take accountability. I take accountability that I was promoting something that's not right for everybody. Not everybody can be a vegetarian, vegan. And you want me to keep it real? 90% of the people that are vegetarian and vegan will get sick. if they perpetuate that lifestyle for over 10 years. 90%. And it will be something about, it will be degenerative disorder. Okay? That's all. Um, because it's not natural, and you're eating, first of all, you're eating fresh, you're eating fruits and veggies that are from depleted soil. So you're not even getting mineral source anymore, because all these farming is evil. Mass farming is why people get sick too from vegetarian vegan lifestyle, because you've depleted the soil. You're not supposed to plant the same thing on the same soil and land for years and years and years. You deplete the soil, and then you start building up other types of phosphates and things, and all kinds of anomalies in the vegetables and fruits. These are people who are in the agricultural field know this. So I personally don't think, unless you're going to live in a jungle with us. Why do you think I want to move to the jungle? I'm about that life. Why? Is because I know what benefits will come with that. I'm bringing everything. I'm bringing my knowledge, my fielding. I'm going to go with a party and people, a team of people who will help us grow the most healthiest, most sustainable agriculture that will ever be on this planet in one region. I'm going to go back to the jungle. Listen, I'm saying I'm going back to the jungle, because my people were originally from South America. I'm going back to the jungle, and I'm going to cultivate foods and veggies and things in a way that it holds its mineral composition. You coming with me, Aaron? Aaron's coming with me. Yeah, I'm staying. And we won't be forced to wear bras. Forced to wear. They're like, no, I want to live. I want to now. Do I want to exclude myself from technology? Absolutely not. I want to live with healthy technology. I want to be exposed to healthy technology that is cohesive with our natural state of being. I low elf waves and all that Wi-Fi, but I want to live in a way where I have technology working with us to make us better, to allow us to have an easier form of existence, like the ETs. I'm planning to be down with the ETs up in the jungle. I'm trying to have them share their technology that is cohesive with us. That's the part. You don't wear bras anyway. Everyone done seen a nipple before. Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you. People act as if when you don't wear advanced technology. Thank you, Sensei. Hey, Sensei. Hey, Mama. Yes. I mean, you know what it is that sexuality has been so perverted that basically a woman being natural in her form messes with people, with genetically modified people, or people who have genetically modified, homogenized mindset. I'm not talking about walking around bucket naked with no form of acknowledgement of the environment around them. See, this is something I don't agree with either. But I personally know that when I look at our indigenous sisters and I look at our indigenous males and I see them walking in a way that is natural, it's not restrictive, but they're cohesive in their environment, I love that. And I'm all about that. And I want to perpetuate that. Now with technology, there's technology that we can coexist with that will be in alignment with us. And it's also why, seems like people that can't figure out who and what they, seems like people that can't figure out what they are will be screwed. I got some intel about the pole shift. Big up to Aborazine. I got some intel about the pole shift. It was very interesting. I'm going to share that. That's a whole nother video. That's a whole nother conversation. It's coming, family. The planet is shaking up. You see it. There's so many earthquakes. I told you, I talked about this already. There's earthquakes. It's earthquakes everywhere. There's earthquakes. The planet is shape shifting. We're going back to 0 point. Even levels of the Mandela effect have excelled to where we're merging with our timelines. I've merged with at least 4 or 5 timelines now where I've noticed that there's like little idiosyncrasies, little differences. It's beautiful. You don't go quite as mad or crazy when you acknowledge that we have these Mandela effects because we're merging timelines. Before, we didn't know why we were doing it or what was happening. We didn't really have that collective acknowledgement that was occurring. But now we know that the Mandela effect was simply the merging of timelines, little idiosyncrasies, little finite plausibilities that show up in other timelines where you exist, and it's fielding together. So that's us going back to 0 point. It's beautiful. It's actually interesting. It's actually exciting when you think about it. Little aspects of yourself, like you'll start to see, like some of you are seeing different insects with different variations. Like all the dragonflies are huge. They've never been that big before. That's another timeline, which I'm in sync with. So I see the new dragonflies are huge. When I say huge, they're like the size of a hand, almost like the jungle. That's not from here. That's not from this timeline. I saw a frog that I've never seen before in my region now. Could he be something from another place? Yeah, but I just take it at there's emerging and little tiny things that are not from the original timeline that I'm from are merging together. So I'm seeing little parts of the other timeline show up. Okay, or people that you know, they change. Like you thought that they had like a certain haircut or a certain or something, or like a mole wasn't there and they have a mole, or they have a scar where they did little things like that. I appreciate it though. I take notes. And so many butterflies, way more. Yes, Aaron, it's beautiful. But also remember, the fairy realms are not closed to us anymore, so we are amongst the fairies. I told you I've had way more contact with the fairies, and I told you one gave birth through a daffodil, like gave birth. The flower gave birth to the fairy. So interesting. Little chunky fairy. Remember I told you about it? Little chunky thing. Yeah, it gave birth to a fairy. I mean, we're merging in these different timelines. You saw the dragonflies are beautiful. And the cicadas, Fleur, make a video about the ancestors taking back the land. And now I'm supposed to make a video about the inner Earth terrestrials and the Council of Nine. I'll make that video maybe tomorrow. That one I was supposed to make today, but I decided to talk about the homogenized beings because I'm noticing homogenized beings are perpetuating all these unnatural systems of behavior, and then they get mad at you when you're disagree, or you're not in sync with their unnatural their unnatural promotions. I know. Just because you say it and just because you've made all these laws protecting homogenized beings from acting unnatural, you think I'm going to sit here and be fearless and be afraid to speak the truth about what's real and what's not? Absolutely zero. I will speak the truth. I will say what I know to be. I don't care what kind of laws you say that something's natural and it's not. I've worked in a laboratory too long and learned too much to sit here and allow some of you systematic Nazis to perpetuate unnatural lifestyles and sociological behaviors that are anti-nature. Get out of here. Come on now. Yes, that's like somebody sitting there telling you fluoride is good for you. And they made laws so when you talk about water being, you can never talk about water, fluoride water. You create a law that says if you talk about fluoridated water, you are being anti-fluoride. This is the type of madness we're living in. We're living in a society where they'll create laws that will protect unnatural sociological types of behaviors and patterns, and will protect them because they know that it's unnatural. If it's natural, why do you have to create a law to protect it? If something is natural, if a behavior is natural, why do you have to create umbrellas to protect it if it's natural? So you're telling me that for years of human evolution, which has not happened, it's just genetic splicing and dicing of certain ET groups, you're telling me that beings had to have lobbyists perpetuate behaviors of people acting natural? I can't. It's like common sense. Whenever you have to create a law, laws to protect, like there's laws to protect people from talking too much about vaccinations. I was at the hospital, big up to my mommy. Big up to my mommy as she is growing in strength. I'm grateful every day. But even so, the fact of the matter is I was in the hospital. Me and this nurse were getting down. I appreciate, she's from Russia. She was from outside of Russia. We were having this conversation about her daughter, and she was telling me, she was like, yo, they try to make her give her daughter Vagisil? What's that shot for the young ladies? What's a shot, family? The shot Vagisil? Is it Vagisil? Is it that vaccination for young ladies? what is it called? I think you'll know what it's called. Gardasil. Thank you. I called it Vagisil. What is Vagisil for, like, yeast infections? I'm crazy. Disgusting. Oh yeah, Gardasil. Gardasil for HPV. She was telling me she saw a young lady just walk in the hospital the other day, paralyzed from getting this vaccination. Paralyzed. And they won't talk about it. Yeah, you go and do that. You go and give your children some crazy. Listen, if I don't know, I don't even let my children get candy from strangers. Let alone get some shot in them from some third parties. And we know that there's non-humans up in this piece. What you think? Hold on. What if they're letting 7th graders get shots? Oh, you bet. Well, there'll be a non-7th grader up in this piece. They're making them, listen, mothers, this is when you don't have children unless you plan a pony up for them. Listen, if you can have a child, you better be prepared to bring that child into this world and advocate for them by all means necessary. If you think for a moment you're going to go and do a shot, hold on. There is an attack on Hawaii. Oh, I just sidebarred. Yeah, if you think you're going to sit there and allow people to come and touch your child and do whatever they want with the child, you best believe that's a mistake. See, some of these complacent parents on this planet just have children for baby showers and gifts. And then when the child actually grows up and they have to actually do some advocacy and work, they're gone. They're lost. They're not even there. See, this is the problem. Now, this is when I will say some people don't need to have children, and that's where we get homogenized beings who have a lack of connectivity. That's also a sign that you're homogenized, when you can't take care of your children based on either trauma, meaning that you've been traumatized as a child and you have the lacking of nurturing that comes with being traumatized, or you're homogenized. And I'm talking to a group of women that I know who are big up to the stushy, bougie women in Manhattan who can't take care of their own babies. They got 12 nannies in the house. They got nannies to take their child to the park. They have a nanny to wake up at night in the middle of the night. They have a nanny to breastfeed their child. Listen, family, I can't even make it up. These are homogenized women that can't even function as mothers because they're not natural. Women that are natural have a natural protective quality to their offspring. When you are not protective of your offspring, something's wrong with you. Something's wrong. You've been traumatized. You've been sociologically abused. Something's wrong. There's something wrong. Say no to vaccinations. And if you can't say no to them, then by all means, you take care of your offspring yourself. Listen, you gave birth to that offspring. That is your genomes. That is you. Basic self-love. If you love you, you love your babies. Okay? And you love them you love them enough to advocate for their safety and for their security. That's all. I'm not saying, and I know it's very tough because I talk to mothers who love their babies. Now let's state this. I talk to moms all the time who love their babies, who kind of got caught in a system where they're overworked, overtired, overtaxed. They feel non-supportive. I'm telling you that you're supported. You're supported as a mother. There are a lot of mothers out here who, if you can't advocate for your child, there are mothers out here, all you do have to contact them, and there's advocacy. You can check it out online. There's support groups for mothers who do not want to vaccinate their children. If you can't do it and you don't have the time to do it, find other mothers who will, and they will help you. Free of charge. Free of charge. That I'm seriously. They will help you free of charge. You have to find other mothers, because if you can't do it, there's advocacy out there of a lot of moms who do this. They're about this life. So just say no to vaccination. And if you're not ready to say no, then I would suggest you not having children for a while until you're able to advocate for your child enough, where you have enough freedom and flexibility in your lifestyle and your economics, where you can advocate for your children. Okay? That's one thing I will say, even if you're having fruitful sex. To have children when you're able to advocate for them free and clearly, whereas the establishment does not make calls in your house, you make the calls. Okay? They taught my children certain things in school. I do appreciate, remember, I'm a facilitator. I come from facilitators, my mother, and I'm allowed to go into I'll be teaching in my child school. I teach occasionally. I'm called in, and I'm allowed to advocate for certain things, and I like that. I like that there are school systems like that where allow for parents and especially parents who are in the educational field to come in and talk to the children and also add their own vibration to the core education that their children are getting. So, you know, when I go in as a teacher or facilitator, I'm very appropriate. I make sure that I advocate for all children, and also I also speak truth so that the children have some sort of you know, sometimes it's a matter that parents don't know what's going on. Sometimes it needs to be those parents who have the time and resources to go in and tell the parents what's going on, because maybe they don't know. And there's lack of transparency in the school districts. Okay. So, hi, sister gives her kids the flu vaccines every 6 months and the kids are always sick. Well, you know, if she doesn't have due diligence, the basic, you know, she doesn't have the basic aptitude to be able to decipher that and equate that the medication that she's giving her child, the vaccinations, is getting her children sick, then I would question her humanity or her sanity. Oh, that rhymes. I would question her humanity or her sanity. Say no to homogenized food, sexuality, sociological behavior, and environment. How do you do this? You can only change what you acknowledge. The fact of the matter is, if you know that these things are being perpetuated, you can change anything. You are never a victim in this matrix. Remember, we're living in a holographic, interactive video game. And because of that, you can change everything at any time. So if vaccinations is not, listen, I manifested my environment. I manifested the school district. I manifested the 4 Starbucks that are in a 2-mile radius. Yeah, I did. That, you know, that's my issue. I manifest. You can manifest anything that you desire, but you have to have the mindset. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Okay. So if you don't like the food that you're getting in grocery stores, by all means, you should be growing your own. And someone said to me, I can't do that. I know tons of people, big up to Brooklyn, big up to the Bronx. I know tons of people who have bins of food growing in their windowsills in their house. They bought the lights, the lanterns to grow food. Don't tell me you can't do anything. You can do anything you put your mind to. So you can do just as much. And if you're living in an area that's antsy to you, pack your stuff up, save your pennies, come together collectively with other moms and dads who have just as limited resources. You pony your money together, you take your change, and you put the money together, and you buy land together, and you create your own little community where you guys grow food together. You can do that. So, you know, everything that you have that's considered adverse, you can change it and shapeshift it and make it to where it's conducive to you. So the Mandela effects are merging the timelines and nothing to be overly concerned about. Yes. Well, CERN, remember, everything's relative. CERN has an aspect of speeding up the process. The beings on this planet. Oh, is my phone about to die? Hold on. I gotta plug in my phone, sorry. Hold on, wait a minute. Because my phone has 10%. Okay. Everything that is happening now is natural. What happens is that they speed the process. CERN only sped up the process of converging the timelines. It was finding certain vortexes too. So CERN was created to speed up the process. They know these beings that were in rulership, they aren't anymore. Everybody's being replaced, and there'll be new people placed in new positions to take on the new cycle. But the fact of the matter is, CERN just exacerbated what was already occurring. There was going to be a convergence. It just wouldn't be so fast, and we wouldn't have noticed it. We weren't supposed to notice it. The fact that we noticed it means it was unnatural. There we go back into this homogenized state of consciousness and being. CERN exacerbated it. Same with the earthquakes. The earthquakes are supposed to happen, but they're exacerbating it. So they're making everything, the quickening happening with the pole shift. The pole shift's supposed to happen. The same with divine feminine showing up on the planet. People were worried about males turning out more feminine. It was supposed to happen, that were men were supposed to be more in sync, listen, in sync with their feminine side. So they knew this time would happen, so they perverted it. Instead of men being more in sync, they made some men want to become women. Do you understand? So they pervert everything that they know is going to happen. They exasperate it. So they do it chemically. They do it sociologically. They do it with laws and, all these promotions of these type of behavior patterns. They do it with chemicalization of the skies and the waterways. They exasperate everything. So really, all these things that are happening were supposed to happen. We're just getting it at a faster rate because they know it'll throw us off. But if you take it in consideration and you know this is what's supposed to be, zero could throw you off. We also have to educate our little ones to not allow anyone to surprise vaccinations. Oh, yes. Thank you, Selma. You're actually right. If someone comes in a classroom and says, oh, we're giving shots today, you all line up for shots. You have to make sure that you are telling your little ones that zero is ever allowed on their bodies, and they aren't allowed to get anything taken orally or topically on their body. And they are allowed to say no and give a hoot if they are sent to the office. By all means, let them be sent to the office because they'll be sued quick. Very litigious parents out here. You try to give a vaccination to a child against the parents' knowledge or against their the rights and the will, you will be sued quicker than that. The districts don't want any problems like that, so let them send your child to the office because you'll have a quick, nice, clean, legal lawsuit, and then you'll take your child to the district, or they'll send your child free and clear to a private school of your liking. So anyway, I know I've gone all over the place. I need like a focus machine. I need like one of those things. You know what it is? There's so many things that spin off on so many different topics. It's so easily to sidebar. I grew up sidebarring, so it's actually something I always did. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to talk about. Oh, there's more crows. Oh no. Hold on, I gotta save a life. Hold on. Bastard. Hey! Hey! Get away from him. Hold on. This crow is trying to kill something in the street. Oh, it's a mole. Okay, look, family. Okay. I gotta get something. Hold on, it's a mole. Come on, baby. Hold on. Shh. Hold on. Come on. Okay. He hurt you? Okay. Hold on. I gotta get something for this guy. You're okay. I'm gonna grab you. Come. There's a mole out here and I'm trying to get him, but I don't want to, I gotta be careful. Because moles are a certain way. He was being eaten by a... Come on, baby. You're okay. Hold on. You're gonna fall out here. There's a squirrel over there. Come on. It's too hot for you to be out here. He's a slippery sucker. He won't let me grab him. Hold on, family. I know you don't see what I'm doing. I'll show you what I'm doing out here. There's a mole. Do you see him? I'm trying to get him out the road. But come on, baby. I know. Come. It's not a mouse. He's a mole. And he's out here and it's too hot. gotta stay out the street. Come, 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 come. He can't see, and they're squirrely. I need like a... Come on, baby. Come on. Hold on, family. I've got to save the mole. He won't survive if he stays out here. And I have a feeling I just need to get him to the grass. Come, 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 come. It's too hot here. You can't see. I know this is saving a life with FleurBrun, but I have to be careful because there's a big crow, and as soon as I leave him, the crow's gonna try to eat him, because that's why he's out here. Now, family, I may have to take off my shirt to pick up this mole, and don't judge me. I don't even know if you can see me. Because this is the only way I think I'll get him out. Okay, you're gonna have to hold on. You can't go in there. Nope. Oh, no, no, no! Hey, family. I think you're here. Are you here? Are you here? I don't think I... Hey, everyone. I'm sorry I scared you. I got our little fella. He's safe. You want to see him? I'm going to bring him to the vet because I know I was... I'm sorry. I had to catch him, poor thing. Here, let me show you where he is. I actually have him here. Hold on. Let me show you. It's on my lap right now. Hold on. Let me capture him. Okay. There he goes. I put him in my little thing. It's actually a thing. I put him in here. I'm gonna bring him to the vet. Look at my little guy. He's feisty, he's very thirsty. This is a mole, everyone. So this is a mole. Say hi, she's thirsty. So she's very thirsty, look. See, she's drinking. She won't drink the water if I have it in the bowl. She can't see. See, she's thirsty. Okay, she was about to be yeah, she's a baby, so I didn't want to leave her out there because I saw the raven was about to eat her, and she was picking at her. She was running in the street, and she can't see. Remember, moles can't see, so I put a little of this in it. Notice I put this in here, and I put this. She drinks the water. She can't see, so I put it in here, and I just put it there for her. So I'm gonna bring her over to the vet because I don't know where she came from, and she's too tiny. The snakes will eat her. She was out in the middle of the day, meaning that wherever her nest was, it could have been a snake invaded the nest, and I'm gonna cover her a little bit because they don't like to be out, and I'm gonna bring her to the vet to find out what we can do with her so that she can go back into nature. Okay? Yeah. Well. My bet is that whenever you see a mole out in the middle of the day, it's not a good sign. We have snakes here. So what I think happened is her nest was invaded by a snake. She was out in the open, and most likely all the moles were eaten. It happens here, we're in Florida, so because of that, I have to bring her in to a shelter where they can take care of her, because I don't know where her nest is. We're not sure that her mother's actually living. I know if I put her back out in the middle of the day, she's nocturnal, so she's not meant to be out in the day, and they'll eat her. She'll be eaten, and she can't see. She's a mole. And the snakes are in the ground too. So my assumption, because I just know nature, is that her nest was invaded by snakes. The parents might have been eaten. She just got escaped. And then when she came out of the ground is when a blackbird was trying to eat her. So I don't want to put her back in. Again, it was a regular garden, but I'm in Florida, and we have a voracious predators here. Yeah, no, she'll be fine. When I tell you I'm an animal activist, I'm sweating. Cause she's squirrely. I couldn't pick her up. I couldn't pick her up with a leaf, and I gotta be careful because if she bites me or something, they don't generally bite. They have a little net, but I gotta be careful not putting it up with my hand. I was gonna take my shirt off, but I figured I'll get some. They just mowed the lawn across the road, so I picked her up with that, put her in a bag, and then put her in the house. Now she's thirsty. I'm gonna let her rest. I'm gonna take her to our local vet, and the local vet will know exactly what we should do with her. So that way she can have a home. It's a mole, you know. I'm used to saving, I save possums sometimes too, but this baby's going to have a life, and we're gonna make sure she has a home. And if you wanna name her, we should name her, give her a little name so we'll remember her. Oh, you saw the Caddyshack, a groundhog, Caddyshack? Yeah, yeah, this little mole, she's so thirsty, poor thing. Possums, yeah, I've saved possums. Molly, you wanna save a Molly and Nana? You got names Daisy, oh, I love Marilyn Monroe. We should get a consensus name to name her, and then we'll put her in the vet. Lucky. Lucky, I think, is best. Lucky, because I tell you, family, I was outside my home, just on the phone in the car, and if I didn't see her, I noticed everything, and I saw the blackbird with something, and it was moving fast. So I was like, okay, that looks like it could be a turtle, and I wasn't gonna let him get away on my watch. I was like, I know he wants dinner. I don't want to mess with the imbalance, but let's call her Lucky. So she's gonna be Lucky. So her name will be Lucky. And Lucky will be brought to the veterinarian today, and hopefully they'll know exactly what we should do to do with Lucky. And again, this is a mole. If you've never seen a mole before, again, I'm sweating because I was out there. I was determined to free this little guy and get her. She's thirsty. Are you still thirsty? She's gonna sleep right now. She's a baby. So this way, aw, sunshine, we'll call her Lucky. Lucky's what she was. So we'll put Lucky. Lucky's all good. I have this little thing I bought for my conference. It's called Farmer's Market. It's crazy. It's meant to put like goodies, and it's actually a decorative type of box. And it's Lucky's home right now. Did you see me? I'm sorry. I know I went off. I knew I was live, but I didn't know how live I was. I was trying to get Lucky out the sun because the bird was gone, but the sun, she would have died in the street. She can't see, and poor thing could not find the soil. She was straight on concrete. So I should probably go outside and see if there's any more baby moles, because I'm assuming maybe she wasn't the only one. I hope there weren't other ones that are out there, so maybe I'll go and look for them to find out if there's more, because if usually there's one baby, there might be another one. You want to see Lucky again? I'll show you Lucky one more time, and then I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna go look for other baby moles. Hold on, let me show you Lucky. And look, this is called Farmer's Market. The poor thing. Hey, Lucky. Lucky's still drinking. Hey, Lucky. She's drinking. Hey, Lucky. Good. Hey, Lucky. You drinking? I'm giving more water. You're okay. You're okay. And she has a hurt leg too, which I'm probably gonna put a little disinfectant on her leg, because he bit a little bit of her leg. So I'm probably gonna get her, when she relaxes a little bit, see? Her feet are like flat. You see her feet are flat because she digs. I don't know if you can see it. See, she's gonna go to sleep now. Okay, okay. I'm gonna put her. She should be nice and safe. And okay, and I think she eats grubs, like bugs. I think they eat grubs, from what I understand. But I'm not going to do all that. I'll wait until I get No, I agree. Ravens eat. I understand that, but when I'm seeing something like that, you know, remember, if I see it and I notice it, I got to be careful too, because sometimes seeing things is for you to be an advocate for it. So when you see a baby in nature, it's my mama bird nature, it's my mama bear nature to want to go and pick her up and feed her, and get her. So their burrow is probably worms, yeah, and grubs. So yeah, so I'll probably get her that. I don't like feeding live things to, you know, then I save worms too. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm probably the case. So I'll say that, but thank you for helping me save Lucky today, everybody. Y'all were talking to me. The raven will find something else. There's lots of things for the raven to eat. This baby was going to be saved by me today regardless. Once I saw her in the street running for her life, she had spunk. This one's Lucky. She was spunky. She wouldn't even let me capture her. So for the fact of the matter is that she was meant to be saved by me. I was going to get her. I was going to get her up regardless. So, right, Lucky? So I'm going to let her rest. Oh, you saved the mouse. You know, this is also why. This is also why. Oh, she's over there. She's trying to snuggle in her little house. Anyway, so I'm gonna go, family. I'm gonna go out. Yeah, she's a fighter. I'll give you all the information on Lucky. We'll take a family picture of her before I release her to the veterinarian. I'll tell you what happens with the vet, to see how Lucky does. Again, I'm gonna probably have to disinfect her part of her leg because the raven was picking at it. So I'm gonna try to get a little Q-tip and clean her leg and make sure I disinfect it so that she doesn't catch an infection. And then I'm going to take her to our veterinarian and find out what they can do from her. Usually, sometimes they have a place where they can free them. He's a really great vet. He dealt with Murphy, Lee, and Sheena, so I know he's an advocate for animals. So we'll make sure we can do that, and I'll tell you how Lucky's doing. But I'm going to go back outside and see if Lucky has any sisters or brothers that are outside, because I think, again, their lair was their little burrow was probably raided by a snake. That's just what it is. Yeah, hydrogen peroxide, right? I'm gonna do that so it doesn't burn too much. And then Murphy Lee. Oh, Murphy Lee was my dog. I know, and he named himself. I didn't even know of the hip hop guy until after I got Murphy Lee. Yeah, it's funny. Everybody thought I named him after the hip hop guy, but yeah, Murphy Lee had passed away. And I haven't had company since my doggies have both passed, but I think Lucky's going to, and if they don't find a home for Lucky, I'll find a home for Lucky. I'll maybe make an enclosed area where Lucky can kind of burrow safely. I'll try to do that if the vet can't find a place. Hopefully he'll know what I can do with her. I want to do a very safe relief. She's a baby, and even if I have to raise her a little bit, I'll create a trench for her so she can live happily until we can kind of safely release her. All right. So anyway, I love you, family. Thank you for the donation. Thank you. I appreciate it. Wish Lucky all the best of luck. Hopefully she'll be fine. I'm going to clean her wounds, but I want to go and see if she has siblings outside that are unsafe. So I love you. Take care and say no to GMOs. Peace. I love it. I can't even end this.